Have you ever had one of those moments, a scary situation, a near miss, and suddenly it feels like the world just shifts into slow motion? It's a really bizarre feeling, but it's also surprisingly common. So today, we're going to break down exactly what your brain is doing in those terrifying moments and why it completely messes with your sense of time.
Wow. I mean, this quote right here just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's that heart in your throat moment where you know something bad is about to happen, and everything just seems to stretch out. Whether it's a fall like this, or a car skidding on ice, or even just dropping a glass plate and watching it shatter, so many of us have felt this exact same thing. So, what is actually going on here? Is time itself really changing? Or is your brain just playing a very, very convincing trick on you? Well, that's the central mystery we're going to solve today. Okay, first things first. Let's just validate this experience. This is not some weird quirk, it's not something you imagined. It is a genuine, real perceptual event that people report all the time. Yeah, think of it just like that, like a movie playing out in excruciating frame-by-frame detail. Every single second feels like it's absolutely packed with information. Now, this isn't just your imagination running wild. This is your brain kicking into a completely different mode of operation to deal with what it thinks is a major threat. Okay, so let's dive into this a little deeper. A really fantastic way to get your head around this is to think about your brain like it's a camera. So check this out. Normally, your brain might be, let's say, recording life at a standard frame rate. But when danger hits, bam, adrenaline floods your system, and your brain starts snapping pictures at maybe double the speed. So later on, when your brain plays that memory back, all those extra frames make the event feel like it lasted way longer. It's the exact same idea behind slow motion video. To put it another way, your brain isn't just working a little bit harder. It is overclocking. It's a term from the world of computing. It means it's pushing way past its normal operating limits, and it's pouring all of its energy into processing every little piece of sensory information as fast as it can, all to give you a better chance at survival. Now, that whole frame rate analogy is brilliant. It really is. But it's describing the effect, right? Not the cause. To really understand what's happening under the hood, we need to look at the powerful neurochemicals that are flooding your system during a crisis. We often think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but as neuroscientist Andrew Huberman explains, it's so much more than that. It's really about motivation, about pursuit. And in a life-or-death situation, that drive is exactly what fuels this state of extreme alertness and focus. In this table here, it kind of shows the chemical tug-of-war happening inside your brain. When a threat triggers a huge surge of dopamine and norepinephrine, both of which jack up your alertness, your internal clock speeds up. You're capturing way more details. You end up overestimating how much time has passed. But on the flip side, you have something like serotonin, which can have the opposite effect, making time feel like it's flying by. So a chemical surge increases our brain's frame rate. Okay, case closed, right? Well, not quite. There is a fascinating twist to the story that makes us question whether we actually experience this slow motion in real time at all. Okay, so to understand this, we need to separate two different ways we perceive time. Prospective time is how fast the clock feels like it's ticking right now. Like when you're bored and every second just drags on. But retrospective time is how you judge an event that's already happened. And here's the key. That judgment is based almost entirely on how many new memories you made during that time. And there it is, the big reveal. That high arousal, high dopamine state doesn't just increase your frame rate. It causes your brain to save an incredibly dense, rich memory of what just happened. It's only after the danger is gone, when your brain looks back at this unusually detailed memory file, that it goes, whoa, so much just happened. That must have taken a long time. The slow motion feeling is actually a story your memory tells you after the fact. So let's just put all the pieces together. 1, a threat appears. 2, your brain is flooded with dopamine and norepinephrine. 3, this overclocks your system, so you capture way more detail than usual. 4, a super dense memory is formed. And finally, 5, when you look back, your brain interprets the sheer density of that memory as a longer amount of time. It's a brilliant survival mechanism that just happens to create a really powerful illusion. Okay, so this is all super fascinating, but what does it mean for our everyday lives, outside of those rare, terrifying moments? Can we actually use this knowledge to maybe change how we perceive time? So a massive, sudden jolt of stress chemicals seems to stretch out a moment.
But what happens when that stress isn't a sudden shock, but more of a low-grade, constant hum in the background of your life? Well, the effect is surprisingly different. What's pretty crazy is that according to research from the National Institutes of Health, long-term chronic stress does the exact opposite of an acute threat. It actually degrades our temporal sensitivity, which is just a fancy way of saying our ability to tell different amounts of time apart. It kind of blurs our perception and makes us worse at judging the passage of time. And this brings us to this incredibly common feeling, right? The days are long, but the years are short. Why does this happen? Well, when our lives fall into a routine, the days can feel boring and they can drag on. That's that prospective time we talked about. But because nothing new or novel is really happening, we form very few distinct memories. So when we look back at the end of the year, that's retrospective time, our brain sees a pretty sparse memory log and just concludes the year must have flown by. So how do we fight back against these vanishing years? Well, the answer is right there in what we just learned. You have to create more memories. Seek out novelty. Break your routines, travel somewhere new, learn a new skill. Anything that forces your brain to create a new, dense memory will, in hindsight, make your life feel longer, richer, and more meaningful. You're basically creating more frames for your future self to look back on. Ultimately, our perception of the past isn't really about the ticking of a clock. It's about the richness of our experiences. Time itself might be constant, but our memory of it is anything but. So the real question isn't how to get more time, but how to fill the time we have. What will you do to make your story a long and memorable one?